Good day, everyone. Now that we are done with the Module 5, let us proceed with the Module 6, which will tackle the general annuity and the perpetuity. Here with me are my co-members that will be discussing the entirety of this module. So for the first lesson, Andrea, Marielle, and I will be discussing the general annuity. But first, let's have the objectives for this lesson. So we have here the objectives for general annuity are to define what is general annuity, relate a general annuity due and ordinary annuity, derive the formulas for the present value, future value, and periodic or regular payment of general annuity, and compute for the present value, future value, and periodic regular payment of general annuity. First, let us define what annuity means. So, annuity is the series of payments in a certain term of annuity according to your um, according to your contract or your financial obligations. So that is annuity. But here, in this lesson, we will tackle the general annuity. So the definition of general annuity is it is an annuity where the payment interval is not the same as the interest compounding period. As you have noticed on the previous topics, magsabay dyan na si payment interval and si interest compounding period. But here in general annuity, unequal si payment interval and interest compounding period. So dili sila magsabay. Since we are talking about annuity, of course, annuity due and ordinary annuity will enter. So in this lesson, we will also discuss the general annuity due and the general ordinary annuity. So, the general annuity due has the following characteristics. Actually, general annuity due has a similar characteristics of a simple annuity due, where it is you will pay at the beginning of the payment interval, and then also for the final payment for your final payment, it has a gap between your final payment and the end of your annuity. However, since it is a general annuity, of course, dili magsabay dun si payment interval and si compounding period. So we have here a an illustration of the general annuity due. Here is the illustration of the general annuity due. It is just similar as the previous group's presentation. As you can see here, the general annuity due is when you pay your first payment will be at the beginning of the term of annuity. As you can see here, the first payment and the start of annuity are in the same date. As you can also observe here that you will pay semi-annually. So you will pay after 6 months. But then you can also notice here that the compounding period or the compound interest is compounding quarterly, meaning that your payment interval and the compound interest compounding period are not the same as what I have mentioned. I mean, as based on the definition of a general annuity. Typically, general annuity due is commonly used in insurance companies where you will pay in a certain number of payments, but then the compounding period the compound interest will not be the same as your payment periods. As well, when most people start an RRSP, they pay it into it on the day they set it up, meaning that their RRSP commences with the first deposited payment. We're done with the general annuity due. Let's proceed with the general ordinary annuity. Of course, as what the previous groups have discussed, what ordinary annuity is, it is when you pay at the end of the payment interval. Uh, but then it is a general ordinary annuity based on the definition. The payment period and the compounding period are not the same. Since general annuity due and simple annuity due shares the common characteristics, of course, the general ordinary annuity and the simple ordinary annuity also shares the same characteristics. It's just that both of those general annuities have an unequal payment periods and compounding periods. Here is the illustration of the ordinary general annuity. We have here the end of annuity and the last payment are on the same date, but the start of annuity and the first payment have an interval or have a gap. And of course, this is a general annuity. The payment periods and the compounding periods are not the same. Ordinary general annuity is commonly used in mortgages and car loans, where your payments are made monthly and interest rates are compounded semi-annually. As with car loans, your first monthly payment is not required until 1 month elapses. Now that we are done with defining what general annuity is, so general annuity means that um, the payment period and the compounding periods are unequal or not the same or not in the same dates. So now let's discuss the finding of the future value of a general annuity on a certain scenario. Here is the formula for finding the general ordinary annuity. So here is the F stands for the future value is equal to R or the regular payment times 1 plus J raised to N minus 1 all over J. So you can see here that J has also its own formula. Since J stands for the interest rate per payment interval converted from the interest rate per period. So J is equal to the 1 plus R over M sub 2 raised to M sub 2 over M sub 1 minus 1. And N stands for the number of payments, which is equal to M sub 1 times T, where M sub 1 is the payment interval, while M sub 2 is the length of the compounding period, and lastly, T is the term for annuity. To elaborate further the formula for finding the future value of a general ordinary annuity, we have here an example. So the first example is Jed started to deposit 1,000 pesos monthly in a fund that pays 6% compounded quarterly. So how much will be in the fund after 15 years? First, we will find the given values, which are the R, the M sub 1, the M sub 2, the T, the R, and the N. First is the R. So R is the regular payment. So how much does Jed wants to deposit? So it is 1,000 pesos. The M sub 1 or the payment periods, it means that how many times in a year does Jed wants to deposit 1,000 pesos? Of course, it is monthly. So since there are 12 months in a year, therefore our M sub 1 should be 12. Next is the M sub 2 or the length of the compounding period of the annuity. Since the interest rate of 6% is compounded quarterly, meaning that it is only compounding 4 times in a year. Therefore, our M sub 2 is equal to 4. Next is the T, or the term for annuity. So this means that it is the number of years where your annuity is due. So since we will find the value of his deposits after 15 years, therefore our T is 15 years, or I mean 15. Next is the R, or the nominal rate. Since nominal rate is the interest rate that is compounded periodically. So we will just convert the 6% into its decimal form, which is 0.06. And lastly, the N, or the number of payments, since Jed is depositing 1,000 pesos monthly for 15 years, will multiply 12 months to 15 years, which is 180. So Jed needs to pay 1,000 pesos for uh, 180 times. So now that we have already our values, let us first find J, since we cannot proceed with finding the future value if we don't have the value of J. So let's write the formula for J, uh, which is 1 plus R over M sub 2 raised to M sub 2 all over, I mean, M sub 2 over M sub 1 minus 1. And then we'll substitute all the values, and then we'll have the value of J, which is 0.00497521. Now that we have the value of J, we will now find the value, or the future value, of Jed's deposit after 15 years. So I have here the formula, which is R times 1 plus J raised to N minus 1 all over J. The next thing we should do is to substitute all the values, and then our future value is 290,082 pesos and 51 centavos. Therefore, Jed's fund will become 290,000 pesos. I mean 290,082 pesos and 51 centavos after 15 years. Another example to solidify our knowledge in finding for the future value of a general ordinary annuity. So here it is. A teacher saves 5,000 pesos every 6 months in a bank that pays 0.25% compounded monthly. How much will be her savings after 10 years? First, we will find the given values of this problem. So R is equal to the regular payment. So how much does the teacher wants to save in in a certain savings? Of course, it is 5,000 pesos. So our R is 5,000 pesos. So our M sub 1 is the payment periods in a year, since the teacher wants to deposit 5,000 pesos every 6 months, and there are 12 months, so we will just divide 12 months to 6 by 6. So now our M sub 1 will become 2, since since the teacher wants to save 5,000 pesos semi-annually. Next is the M sub 2, or the length of the compounding period, since the interest is compounding monthly. Therefore our M sub 2 will become 12. Next is the T, or the term for annuity. The teacher wants to save 5,000 pesos for 10 years. Therefore our T is 10. Next is the R, or the nominal rate, or the compounding rate. Since the bank is offering the teacher a 0.25%, which is compounding monthly. Therefore our R is 0.25%. But we will convert it first into its decimal form, which will become 0.0025. And lastly, our N is the number of payments the teacher should pay in 10 years, since the teacher will deposit, or will save 5,000 pesos twice a year. So after 10 years, she will have 20 payments. So therefore, our N is equal to 20. Next is to find the value of J, since we cannot proceed with the future value formula if we don't have the value for J. Same as the previous example, we'll just substitute the values for the formula of J until we arrive into the value of 0.0125065. And next is to find the future value of the teacher's savings after 10 years. So same as the previous example, we'll just substitute all the values for to the formula of the future value, so that we'll have the future value of 101,197 pesos and 8 centavos. Therefore, the teacher's savings after 10 years will become 101,197 pesos and 8 centavos. All right, we are done with applying the formula for finding the future value of a general ordinary annuity. Let us now proceed with the present value, or the formula for the present value of a general ordinary annuity, which will be tackled by Marielle.
Good day everyone, my name is Marielle H. Lacre, and for my part we'll be tackling about how to get the present value for general annuities. What is present value? The present value or PV of a general annuity is the value today of a set of regular payments that are to be made in the future. So it answers the question, how much money must I invest or borrow now so I can make irregular payments in the future? So why do we need to calculate it? It is important for loans, investment, and purchases paid over time. So for example, you're borrowing a money today but will pay it back through an equal payments in the future. The present value tells you how much of loan is worth today, and we need to consider two, two things. First is the payment frequency and the compounding period of it. These are the following formulas needed to solve for the present value of general annuity. So for our main formula, we have P is equal to R, 1 minus the quantity of 1 plus J raised to negative N over J, where P is the present value or the amount borrowed or invested today, and R is the periodic payment or the equal payment made each period, and J is the equivalent interest rate per payment period, and N is the total number of payments. The next formula is for the interest rate per payment period, which is J is equal to the quantity of 1 plus R over M sub 2 raised to M sub 2 over M sub 1 minus 1, where J is equal to the interest rate, and M sub 1 is the number of payment per year, and M sub 2 is the number of compounding period per year. So the last formula is for the total number of payments. So N is equal to M sub 1 times T, where T is the total number of years and M sub 1 is the total number of payment per year. For us to understand further, now let us proceed to example number 1, where we apply the formula of for the present value of general annuity. So in this problem, Manilyn borrowed an amount of money from Yanni, and she agrees to pay 38,973.76 every year for 3 years. The interest rate is 8% compounded quarterly, so our goal is to find out how much she borrowed. In other words, what is the present value of this annuity? So the first thing we need to do is to list down all the givens. For the periodic payment, it is equal to 38,973.76. And for the number of payment per year, since it is only once a year, so 1. And for the M sub 2, the number of compounding period per year, it is stated that quarterly, so it is equal to 4. And for the total number of years, it should be paid in the span of 3 years, so 3. And for the nominal rate, it is equal to 8% or is equal to 0.08. So we need to find the n, j, and the present value. The next step is to find for j, or the interest rate per payment period. So we're using the formula j is equal to the quantity of 1 plus r over m sub 2 raised to m sub 2 over m sub 1 minus 1. So we need to substitute all the values. So j is equal to 1 plus 0.08 over 4 raised to 4 over 1 minus 1. So we get the result of 0.08243216. Now for the number of years, so we need to use the formula n is equal to m sub 1 times t. So 1 times 3 is equal to 3. Now, since all of the givens are complete, we need to substitute all the values into the present value formula, in which it is p is equal to r 1 minus the quantity of 1 plus j raised to negative n over j. So we need to substitute the value. So P is equal to 38,973.76. 1 minus the quantity of 1 plus 0.08243216 raised to negative 3 over 0.08243216. So you just need to input that all to your calculator, and we get the value of, oh, I'm sorry, it's wrong. So it should be P is equal to 100,000. So therefore, Monolene borrowed an amount of 100,000 to Yanni. So to give you another example, so Mr. Ramos would like to buy a television set payable monthly for 9 months starting at the end of the month. How much is the cost of the TV set if his monthly payment is 3,200 and interest is 7% compounded semi-annually? So again, we need to list down all the givens. So the periodic payment or the monthly payment is equal to 3,200. Next is the number of payment per year is equal to 12, and the m sub 2 or the number of compounding period per year is equal to 2 since it's semi-annually. And for the total number of years, so since he will only pay for 9 months, so 9 divided 12 is equal to 0.75. And for our nominal rate is equal to um 0.07 since the interest is 7%. So again, we need to find the n, j, and the present value. So the next step is to solve for j. So we need to use again the formula j is equal to the quantity of 1 plus r over m sub 2 raised to m sub 2 over m sub 1 minus 1. So again, substitute the value. So 1 plus 0.07 over 2 raised to 2 over 12 minus 1. So again, we need to just simply input it to our calculator. Then we get the value of 0.00575003. So that is the value for our interest rate. So now we need to solve for the number of payments. So we use the formula n is equal to m sub 1 times t. So our m sub 1 is 12. So 12 times 0.75. So our n now is equivalent to 9. Since we already get the value of n and j, we can now substitute for the future value. So the future value is equivalent to r 1 minus the quantity of 1 plus j raised to negative n over j. Then we need to substitute all the given. So PV is equal to 3,200, then 1 minus the quantity of 1 plus 0.005750003 raised to negative 9 over 0.005750003. So if we input that in our calculator, we get the value of 27,989.17. So therefore, the TV set costs approximately um 27,989.70. So, to conclude, the present value of the general annuity helps us determine how much a series of future payment is worth today. So, whether it is borrowing money or making monthly purchases, understanding how to compute the present value is useful skill, especially in the real life financial decision. So, that's all for my part. Thank you for listening, and I will be passing the virtual floor to the next reporter. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. My name is Andrea May Tormis, and for my part, we will be talking about periodic or regular payment for general annuities. So, for my discussion, I will be teaching you on how to calculate getting those regular payment or periodic payment in general annuities. So, where do periodic or regular payments and general annuities are commonly used? These are commonly used for retirement income, loan repayments, and lease payments. These payments are actually made at irregular intervals. It might be for monthly, quarterly, or annually, and can be either an ordinary annuity, which means payments at the end of the period, or an annuity due, which means payments at the beginning of the period. So the main purpose of these payments are to provide a stream of income or fulfill financial obligations over a set period of time or for the duration of a person's life. So here are the set of formula that we could use in terms with computing or calculating periodic or regular payments for general annuities. First is R is equal to F over the quantity of 1 plus J raised to N minus 1 over J. And the second one is R is equal to P over 1 minus the quantity of 1 plus J raised to negative N over J. And also in finding the J, we have 1 plus R over M sub 2 raised to M sub 2 over M sub 1 minus 1. And also in finding the N, that would be M sub 1 multiplied to T. So where R, like the small r, represents periodic payment amount, J represents interest rate per period, N number of payments, F represents future value, P represents present value, and then or the same thing, periodic payment amount, I nominal annual interest rate, M sub 1 is the number of payments periods per year, and M sub 2 is the number of compounding periods per year, and J is equal to effective interest rate per payment period, and the N is the total number of payments period, and M sub 1 is equal to the number of payments periods in years, and T, that would be number of years. So those are the equivalents for the formula provided into the presentation. So now let's have an example. So for example number one, find the monthly payment of the future value of 50,000 for 1 year with an interest rate of 10% compounded quarterly. So now let's have the given. So for our future value, that would be 50,000. Our M sub 1 is equal to 12. Our M sub 2 is equal to 4. And our T is equal to 1. Our R is equal to zero point 0.1 and our N is equal to 12. So for us to proceed, we need to find the value of our J. So the formula of our J, that would be the quantity of 1 plus R over M sub 2 raised to M sub 2 over M sub 1 minus 1. So just fill in all of the given values or substitute the values. And if you will be putting that one into your calculator, we will end up having J as equal to 0.000832639. So since we have already the value of our J, we could proceed with our getting the regular payment or the periodic payment of general annuities in this given example. So R is equal to the future value over the quantity of 1 plus J raised to N minus 1 over J. So just substitute all of the given values, and if you will go ahead and put all of the values there, we will have our R as 4,147 pesos and 61.97 centavos. So therefore, we can conclude that the monthly payment of the invested money is approximately 4,147 pesos and 62 centavos. Let's have another example. So let me read that one to you. Aliyah is the beneficiary of 1 million pesos insurance policy. Instead of taking the money as lump sum, she opted to receive a monthly stipend over a period of 10 years. So if the insurance policy pays an interest of 5,000 compounded annually, the question is what will her monthly stipend? So for us to get that one, we need to also get those given and also substitute it to the formula that we have in getting our regular payment or periodic payment of the general annuities. So for this example, let's have the given. The given or for the future value, that's 1 million pesos. M sub 1 will be 12, M sub 2 will be 1, D will be equal to 10, and R is equal to 0.05, and our N will be 120. So first, let's find the J, because that's part of the formula. So J is equal to the quantity of 1 plus R over M sub 2 raised to M sub 2 divided by M sub 1 minus 1. So just plug in all of the given in the formula. So our J right now will be 0.001035,746. Since we're done finding the J, we have already the J here. Let's proceed in finding the periodic or regular payment or like the monthly stipend of Aliyah. So for us to get that, let's have the formula. R is equal to F over 1 minus the quantity of 1 plus J raised to negative N over J. So let's just substitute all of the given values, and you just if you go ahead and key in those details in your calculator, we have our R is equal to 8,866 pesos and 24 centavos. So for this one, the monthly stipend is approximately 8,866 pesos and 24 centavos. And that would be all for my part. I hope that you understand the periodic or the regular payment in general annuities.
Okay, hello everyone. I hope you're all doing well today. Since my co-reporters have already finished discussing the first lesson in Module 6, we will now dive into Lesson 2, which introduces a new and interesting concept, which is the perpetuity. But before we begin, allow me first to introduce myself. By the way, I am Judeylyn C, and joining with me for this lesson are my co-reporters Alissa Batobato and Aiza Redoble. So now, let's first go over to the learning outcomes of this lesson. By the end of this discussion, you will be able to first define perpetuity and describe its different types, including the constant, growing, deferred, immediate, ordinary, real, and nominal. Second, we have solve real-world perpetuity problems using the correct formula and tools. And lastly, we have explain the advantages and disadvantages of perpetuity in real-life situations. So now, I have question here. What is perpetuity? Okay, some of you may already be familiar with this word, while others may be hearing it for the first time. So let's look at what some experts say. So according to Taylor 2023, perpetuity is a situation where cash flow payments continue indefinitely. It is an annuity with no end. Meanwhile, Kagan 2022 also defines perpetuity, where it is a security that pays a never-ending stream of income. Okay, to make it more simply, when we say perpetuity, it is a series of equal payments that continue forever. It's like receiving a fixed amount of money regularly, whether yearly, monthly, or quarterly without end. So of course the payments go on and permanently. That's why the reason why we call also perpetuity, it's because it comes from the word perpetual, which means never ending. Okay, to make it easier to understand what perpetuity is, let's take a look at some real-world situation where perpetuity is commonly applied. So, first we have the scholarship. Scholarship programs are actually designed to last forever. For instance, imagine a donor gives a university 1 million pesos where that funds earn 5% interest every year. The school can use the 50,000 interest year after year to give scholarship without ever touching the original, which is the 1 million pesos. So this means the scholarship can support students for generations. And next, we also have the trust funds. So trust funds are usually created by wealthy individuals or families. These are used to provide ongoing financial support. The money in the trust invested and the interest earned is distributed every year or possibly forever, as long as, of course, the funds continue to grow. And another thing also, we have the pension plans. Some retirement plans offer lifetime payments to retirees. So, in some cases, even after the retiree passes away, the payments continue to their spouse. While it is not technically forever, it gives the feeling of endless payment. And lastly, or we also have the corporate dividends. Large and stable companies just like the Coca-Cola or even the Jollibee, they regularly pay dividends to their shareholders. So these dividends payments happen on a regular basis, and they are expected to continue indefinitely as long as, of course, as long as the business stays profitable. So when investors buy shares in these companies, they often see it as a long-term income stream. So now, let's take a look at this picture. So, as you can see, we begin with ordinary or with an ordinary annuity. These are equal payments that made at regular intervals like yearly or monthly. But here's the key. It is only lasts for a specific period. After a number of years, the payments stop. But in that timeline, we notice something interesting. The line continues even after the annuity ends. This is where they enter the world of perpetuity. So a perpetuity is very similar to an annuity because it also involves equal and regular payments. However, unlike the annuity, perpetuity never ends. The payments go on forever, no expiration, no endpoint. Now that we've seen where perpetuity is used in real life, let's take a look at the formulas used to calculate its value and how it's compared with the formula we use for ordinary annuity. So here, this formula help us the first present value where it is a P of a series equal payments that are made at regular intervals but only for limited number of periods. So this formula works when there is a start and an end to the payment. But what if the payments don't stop, or what if they go on forever? That brings us the perpetuity, right? So let's look at its formula. So this formula is much simpler, and here's why. So in perpetuity, the payments continue forever, right? So we no longer need the this term. So this term, we don't need this term because there is no end to count. Why don't we need? In the ordinary annuity formula, in this part, it is used to discount future payments because we need to know how much money we'll receive over a specific number of years and how much that worth today. So, but in perpetuity, the number of years is infinite. So, what happened to 1 plus I raised to the power of negative n? So, it becomes a very large number, right? It becomes 0. So, that's why the annuity formula simplifies into P is equal to A over I. And again, that is the formula of perpetuity, where P stands for the present value. This is the total amount of money that the entire stream of future payments is worth today. We also have A, where A stands for the annual payment or periodic cash flow, where this is the amount you receive or pay every period, such as every year. So we also have the I, where I stands for the interest rate per period. So always remember that the I, or the interest rate, it always expressed as a decimal. Okay? Are we all clear with that? Okay. So now that you know what perpetuity really means, let's move on identifying its different types. So perpetuity actually comes in various forms depending on how the payments behave or when they begin. Here are the types of perpetuity. So we have the constant perpetuity, where payments stay the same forever. We also have the growing perpetuity, where the payments increase at a constant rate over time. And then we also have the deferred perpetuity, where payment starts after delay, then continue forever. And then we also have the immediate perpetuity, where payments start right away and go on indefinitely. And next we have ordinary perpetuity, where payments are made at the end of each period and forever. And then we also have the real perpetuity, where payments are adjusted for inflation to keep real value. And lastly, we have the nominal perpetuity, where payments are not adjusted for inflation. So all of these types may differ in timing or value, but they are all share one thing, and that is the payments never end. So later on, i-discuss sa akong mga co-reporters as well as me ang different unsa man concepts behind ato nga mga types nga perpetuity. But now we will focus for my part, we will focus on the constant perpetuity and then the growing perpetuity. So first, let's define what is constant perpetuity. So I already discussed it earlier, where it is a stream of equal payments made regularly and endlessly. The amount stays the same forever and it never changes over time. So for us to understand this type of perpetuity, I'll provide some examples. So here is our example. So we have San Lorenzo National High School wants to create a legacy scholarship that supports one deserving students every year with 18,000 pesos to help cover their tuition, school supplies, and daily allowance. The school plans to fund the scholarship forever using the interest earned from an investment. If the school can invest the money at an annual return of 6%, the question is, how much should they invest today to ensure that the 18,000 peso scholarship can be given every year without fail and it continues forever? So, of course, in every problem, what we're going to do first is we are going to understand the problem. So in this problem, we are asked to find the present value or how much the school needs to invest today to sustain the 18,000 scholarship forever. And then followed by understanding the problem, we are going to identify the given. So we are going to list the known values. So we have the A in which it is 18,000 where it is the annual payment. We also have the I where it is 6% since as what I have said earlier, the interest rate should be in decimal. So it becomes 0.06. And we're looking for the P where the amount to invest today in the present value. And then after that, we are going to choose the right formula. So earlier, I presented formula where it is the formula where perpetuity really focus or dira jud ginakuha ang formula sa perpetuity where it is the P is equal to A over I. Since we have the formula, now we are going to substitute the given values. So, we have now the 18,000. Then we are going to divide it to 0.06. If we are going to calculate, we will have 300,000 pesos. So now, to provide the legacy scholarship of 18,000 every year forever, San Lorenzo National High School must invest 300,000 pesos today in a fund that earns 6% interest annually. Each year, the school will use the 18,000 interest earned to give the scholarship without ever touching the original fund. So, is there any question you want to ask regarding with this problem? So, since you don't have any question, we will proceed with another example. So, let's try another example about in which we will still focus on constant perpetuity, but in this time, it involves monthly payments and different interest setup. And in this example also, I want you all to try on your notebook, try to solve. Just get your calculator, your ball pen, and of course your notebook, and try to solve the problem that I am going to present later on. Always remember to use the formula that I gave it earlier. So our problem, or here's the second example. So Mr. De La Cruz is considering buying a commercial building that provides a fixed monthly rental income of 25,000 pesos. So the rental payments are expected to continue forever with no increase or decrease. So he wants to determine the maximum price he should pay for the property if he desires a 9% annual return based on a monthly compounding. So the first thing again that we need to do, just understand the problem. Okay, so in this problem, we are asked to find the value or how much Mr. De La Cruz should pay today so that the rental income gives him a 9% return forever. Since we're done understanding the problem, what we're going to do next? Of course, we are going to identify the given value. So, we have A, where our A is, yes, exactly 25,000 pesos monthly rental income, which is the monthly rental income. And we also have the I, or our interest rate, in which it is 9%. And if you will observe on our problem, it stated there that it is compounded monthly. So what we're going to do? So the 9% or the 0.09, since it is in decimal, we should use decimal, so it becomes 0.09. So we are going to calculate that one or divide it by 12 since 12 months. Ang 1 year, we have 12 months. So, 0.09 divide 12. So, it becomes if you're going to use your calculator, or if you're going to try to solve this one, the 0.09 divide 12, it becomes 0.0075, and that is our I now. So now that we're done with the identifying the given, it's time for us to use the perpetuity formula, or we're going to find what is the formula that we are going to use in this example. So earlier, I presented to you the perpetuity, or the most common formula that we use in solving perpetuity. Since this is constant and it is never ending, we will use this formula again, where the formula we use in the first example. So P is equal to A over I. So but remember again, we are asked, or since the payment is monthly, the interest rate must also be monthly. So now that we're done knowing the formula that we are going to use, it's time for us to substitute the values. So we all know, or it stated earlier, that our A is 25,000 pesos and our B is 0.0075. After that, what we're going to do? Of course, we are going to evaluate. So if we will use our calculator, or we will use our, or we will try solving in this example, the result of this will become 3,333,333 and 33 hundreds. So that's our final answer. So Mr. De La Cruz should pay no more than 3,333,333 and 33 hundreds. So for the commercial property to meet his target 9% annual return based on monthly income. So is there any question regarding with the concept of the constant perpetuity? So if there's none, we will proceed with another type of perpetuity, in which it is the growing perpetuity. So after understanding constant, it's time for us to move with the growing perpetuity. So I presented earlier what is growing perpetuity. So a growing perpetuity is a stream of payments that continue forever, since it is a perpetuity. But the payments here increase at a constant rate every year. So naay changes. So this is often used in situation where we expected the value increase over time, like rent, scholarship, or donation. So that grow due to inflation or income growth. So to calculate the present value of growing perpetuity, we use this formula, in which it is P P is equal to A over R minus G. What did you observe? So we have now the new given, or na natin bago nga letter, which is the J. Why? It's because when we say growing perpetuity, it increase at constant rate every year. So, na changes. Unlike sa katong constant, wala changes. So, since naman siya changes, we are going to subtract. So, we're subtract to the growth rate of the payment. So, here's the symbol that we need to be familiar. And so, first we have the present value, which is one. We also have the A, where same earlier, it is the first, the A here is the first payment or cash flow for year 1. And R, same with the constant perpetuity, it is the interest rate or required rate of return. And J for growth rate of the payment. Why it is R minus J again, instead of just R, like in constant perpetuity? So, to answer that question, the payments stay the same, so we only need, so the constant perpetuity payments stay the same, so we only divide the interest to find how much all the future payments are worth today. So since it is growing perpetuity, the payments get bigger every year, so that means they becomes more valuable over time, so the present value increases. So to adjust the increase, we subtract the growth rate from the interest rate in the formula. So that is the formula that we are going to use now. So again, it is the present value is equal to A over R minus J. So for us to understand the concept of growing perpetuity, I'll present to you some examples. So for our example number one, I'll read the problem. So we have, so Mr. Santos owns a commercial space that earns 50,000 in rent this year. So he expects the rents to increase by 4% each year forever due to inflation. He wants to know how much the entire future rental income in worth today if his required rate of return in 9%. So, of course, we need to find the given. So, what are the given? So, we have the A, in which it is the 50,000 pesos, and I is, since it is 9%, we are going to make it 0.09. Why again? It's because in interest rate, it should be decimal. And then we have our J also. So it is 4%. Since it is percent, we are going to convert it to decimal. So it becomes 0.04. And we are asked to find the P, or the we're going to find the present value. So, what's the formula that we are going to use again? It should be the P is equal to A over I minus J. And then after that, since we have our formula, we are now, we will move to, exactly, we're going to substitute the given value. So, we have the A, in which it is 50,000, then divide to 0.09, our interest rate, minus the J, in which it is 0.04. So 0.09 minus 0.04, it becomes 0.05. So we have now 50,000 divide 0.05, and if we are going to evaluate these numbers, it becomes 1 million pesos. So therefore our P here is 1 million pesos. So in conclusion, Mr. Santos would need 1 million pesos today to match the value of the rental income that starts at 50,000 this year and increases by 4% every year forever. So this is the real estate application of growing perpetuity. So I have here a second example. So I want you all again to try to answer. So here's the example. A foundation gives an annual donation to a school starting at 20,000 this year and plans to increase it by 3% yearly to keep up with inflation. So the school investment earns 7% per year. How much should that foundation invest today to fund this donation plan forever? So I want you all to try this example on your notebook, or just comment your answer. So just here's the if you're done solving, so here's the given. We have A is equal to 20,000. We have I is equal to, or the interest value, interest rate I mean, is 7%. Since it really needs that it is in decimal, it becomes 0.07, and our J here is 3%, and same with I, it should be decimal, so it becomes 0.03, and we are going to find the P here. So same formula that we used earlier, and then we are going to substitute. So 20,000 over 0.07 minus 0.03, and if we are going to subtract these numbers, it becomes 0.04, and then after that we are going to evaluate 20,000 divide 0.04, and it becomes 500,000 pesos. So you can manually solve this one, but if you have your calculator, you can use it and try to evaluate or try to calculate. So in conclusion, for this example, the foundation must invest 500,000 pesos today in an account earning 7% annually. So it can give 20,000 this year, increasing by 3% every year forever. So this is a real growing perpetuity used in education and non-profit funding. So I guess that's end with my example. I hope you learned something. So For you to understand the other types of perpetuity, Aiza and Alissa will explain it to you. So now I'll give the floor to Aiza. Thank you so much.
Okay, good day everyone. I am Aiza Redoble. To continue, since Miss Judeylyn already discussed the content of perpetuity and provided some types, formula, and also an example, I have here another example to try on. So let's try this example. We have Jacob who wants to fulfill this goal of receiving a 50,000 pesos every year by investing in a bank that offers a 6% interest rate annually. So the question is, how much must he invest today to make this happen? So first things first, let's write down the given details based on the situation. So we have our A is equal to 50,000 pesos, wherein it is the annual payment he wants to receive. And our I, we have the 6 percent, which or 0.06, which is per annum, which is our interest rate. And since Jacob wants this payment to continue yearly without an end, this is a perpetuity, a stream of equal payments that goes on forever. So because of this, we're going to use this perpetuity formula, which is perfect for this situation where the payments are constant and infinite. So the formula that we're going to use is the present value of perpetuity, which is the P is equals to A times I mean divides I, where P is the amount Jacob needs to invest today, A is the annual payment, and I is the interest rate. So let's apply. So since we already have the given value, we have the A, we have the I. So let's plug in this into our formula, and this is the result. P is equals to um, 50,000 pesos divides RI, which is 0.06. And let's do the calculations. The result is 833,000, 333 pesos and 33 cents. So Jacob needs to invest 833,333 pesos and 33 cents today. So this amounts with an 6% annual interest rate will generate to 50,000 pesos each year, indefinitely covering his goal. So this is the amount that Jacob must invest today. Six. Okay, and now let's try another example. So this time we have Zyrel, who decided to invest the profit from her business into a bank that offers a 10% interest rate annually. So she wants to buy the following amount: 50,000 pesos at the end of each year for 5 years. The second is 70,000 pesos at the end of each year for the next 10 years. And lastly, 100,000 pesos continuously forever. So the question is, how much should she invest today to make this work? Now let's start by writing down the given details, since this problem involves an ordinary annuity and perpetuity. So as the problem stated, our A sub 1 or our first annuity is 50,000 pesos, which is A sub 1, and our N is 5 years. And our A sub 2, 70,000 pesos, and our N is 10 since it's up to 10 years. And lastly, our A sub 3, which is equal to 10,000 pesos, and the N is continuously. And the interest rate is 10% per annum or 0.10. And because we're dealing with time payment in a perpetual payment, we're going to use the ordinary annuity formula for the first two parts and adjust for the perpetuity as the situation states. These are structured over different time periods. And as for the formula that we're going to use, since it is an ordinary annuities, we'll use the present value formula for an ordinary annuity. Then we have the P is equal to A times 1 minus the quantity of 1 plus I,
raised to negative n divides I. So where P is the present value, A is the annual payment, I is the interest rate, and N is the number of years. And for the perpetuity, the present value is A divides I, but we need to discount it back from when it starts. Okay, let's do the calculations. First thing first, let's find the present value of our A sub 1, which is 50,000 pesos per year for 5 years. So, this one, we're going to use the ordinary annuity formula, as I said earlier, which is P is equals to A times 1 minus 1 plus I raised to negative n over I. And since we already have the given value, let's just plug in all the value in our formula. So we have our A is equal to 50,000 pesos and our I is 0.10 since it has an interest rate of 10%. And our N is 5 since it's for 5 years. And let's do the calculations. Our A sub 1 or our P sub 1 is equal to 189,539.300 3,385 cents. So that is the value of our A sub 1. And for our step 2, we're going to find the present value of our A sub 2, which is 70,000 pesos per year for the next 10 years. And again, we use the ordinary annuity formula, but note, this payment start in year 6 and go to year 15. So we calculate the PV as of year 5, then discount it back to the present, which is the year 0. So first, let's have this one. As presented, the 70,000 times the quantity of 1 minus quantity of 1 plus 0.10 raised to negative 10 since it's 10 years divides 0.10. And dito sa kabila, as you notice, meron nakalagay dyan na 1 plus 0.10 raised to negative 5 since this payment start in year 6. So, kailangan natin siyang i-discount back to zero. So, bakit siya mayroong ganyan? So, let's do the calculations and the result is 267,070 pesos and 4,916 or 49 cents as for the value of our A sub 2. Okay, as for our step 3, we're going to find the present value of A sub 3, which is 100,000 and forever starting year 16. So the formula that we're going to use, since this is perpetuity, we're going to use the perpetuity formula, which is P is equals to A divides I. So, but this 100,000 start at year 16, not now. So, we first compute the perpetuity value as of year 15, then discount it back to year 0. So, as you notice, this is the as a presented, P is equal to 100,000 divides 0.10, that is equal to 1 million pesos. So, nilagay ko na lang diretso yung discount, which is the 1 plus 0.10 raised to negative 10. So, ay not negative 10, it's negative 15 pala since it's 15 years back. So, the result is 385,543 pesos and 29 cents. And after this one, all the result from the part 1, the A sub 1, A sub 2, and A sub 3, we're going to add those value. Okay, for the last part, we're going to add or the values that we have from A sub 1, A sub 2, up to A sub 3. And as for A sub 1, we have the value 189,539 pesos and 34 cents. And for the A sub 2, we have 267,070 pesos and 49 cents. And for the last one, we have 385,000 543 pesos and 29 cents. And the total of that is 842,153 pesos and 12 cents that Zyril should invest today to meet her future financial goals. And that's all for my part. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I am Alissa Batobato and I will be discussing the last two types of perpetuity, which is the real and nominal perpetuity, and also the disadvantages and advantages of the perpetuity. So first, let's start from real perpetuity. Payment is adjusted for inflation. So a real perpetuity adjusts payments annually or every year to match the inflation. So it ensures the payment retains its purchasing power. So in real perpetuity, gina-adjust ang payment so that the person still buy, gina-adjust ang payments every year to match the inflation so that the person still buys the same amount every year even though na-inflation na nahitabo. It uses the real interest rate, which is the nominal interest rate minus the inflation. So that's how we calculate the value of the real perpetuity. So an example is that you're a college student and you are working college student and you get money every year, but the the prices of the things that you need or mga essentials, necessities na kailanganin mo everyday, like for example, school supplies and then mga foods is nagataas or there is an inflation that is happening. In a real perpetuity, your payment is increases each year or it goes up or it rises so that you can still buy the same amount every year. Even though there is an inflation, you can still buy the same amount. So that is the real perpetuity. Again, the payment is adjusted for inflation and it uses the real interest rate. So the payment is adjusted for inflation so that the person or the individual can still buy the same amount every year. Next is the nominal perpetuity. So payment is fixed and not adjusted for inflation. So if the real perpetuity is the payment is adjusted for inflation, kabaliktaran si nominal perpetuity because the payment is fixed and it is not adjusted for inflation. So in a nominal perpetuity, again, there is a fixed payments that do not change regardless inflation. This means that the payments real value or kung unsa tong kaya mapalit is naga-decrease siya every year as time goes by kasi ang prices is nagataas. So it's like for example, again, you're a college student and you are getting allowances or you have your own income every year, let's say $100. But uh, prices of the things that you need or your necessities or essentials every day, like for example, school supplies is nagataas, and then your $100 buys less each year. Since it is said earlier that I have what I have said earlier that the payments do not change regardless of inflation. So ang payments real value is nag-decrease siya every year as time passes by. So ang imuhang $100 is kung tahay karon imong $100 is makapalit pa siya og um 20 ka notebook. And then as time goes by, as years goes by, ang imong $100 for, let's say 10 years from now, ang imong $100 is basig mga 15 na lang ka notebooks or 10 na lang ka notebooks ang mapalit. So that is the nominal perpetuity. Again, payment is fixed and not adjusted for the inflation. Now let us move on to the advantages of perpetuity. The first advantages of perpetuity is it provides guaranteed income forever, since perpetuity is continuous and it lasts forever. So this means that we can rely on getting money every year without stopping, or like we can rely sa perpetuity o kwarta and dili ta mag-uol na ay end since forever man siya. And then this perpetuity is useful for long-term needs since continuous man siya. It is nice, or it is good for mga long-term needs, like for example sa mga scholarships and or mga pensions. For example, a university might set up a fund to pay $1,000 annually for students forever for scholarships. So that is an example of the first advantage of perpetuity, which it provides guaranteed income forever. Next is that perpetuity is useful for valuing companies, especially those companies with steady dividends. So, perpetuities, it helps determine a company's worth, especially katong mga nagabayad og steady dividends or mga companies na regular profits, na mga regular profits sa mga investors. Like for example, if a company pays $5 per share every year forever, and the required return is 10%, then the stock value is the $5 divided by the 0.10 or the 10%, that would be equal to $50 per share. So that is how helpful the perpetuity sa mga companies. Lastly, perpetuity is also a simple formula and easy to apply. So that is the last advantage of perpetuity. Simple formula and easy to apply, as what we have seen earlier from the previous reporters. Um, they showed the formula of the perpetuity, wherein what you're going to do is just to divide the annual payment and the interest rate. So the calculation is straightforward, since you are only going to divide the annual payment and the interest rate. Just for example, here for $100 payment at 5% interest, the value is $100 divided by the 0.05 or the 5%, and that would be equal to 2,000. So that's how easy to compute the value of the perpetuity without a complex models. At this point, let's talk about the disadvantages of the perpetuity. Now, one of the disadvantages of perpetuity is that it assumes payments go on forever. Since as what I have said earlier, perpetuity is continuous and forever. It uh, uh, goes forever, and this statement often is unrealistic. So that's one of the disadvantage of perpetuity, because in real life we all know that few things don't uh, last forever, and companies might go bankrupt, diba? There are some companies na bankrupt. Some succeed, but some also bankrupt or the economic condition might change. Diba? Dili man always ang economic condition is stable ang siya permanente. And nag-change jud siya and naay mga challenges po na na maagian ang atong economic. And also stopping payments, diba? Namo mga paghunong sa mga payments ingana like pag mga mahuman na mga payments, there are stopping payments. So, ano siya, perpetuity sometimes or oftentimes unrealistic. Example, here, a small business might promise 200 yearly forever but could run out of money after a few years. So, dili tanan companies is nag-succeed and mostly or some of the companies should is bankrupt depending on yun sa pag-handle sa company. So that is the first disadvantage of perpetuity. It is often unrealistic. Next disadvantage of perpetuity is that it is highly sensitive to changes in interest rates. So, since continuous perpetuity and it goes forever, small changes in interest rates can significantly affect the value as again, the formula is inversely related. Since, di ba, formula is i-divide lang na siya. So, since if nadyo gamay lang yung change, daho nana dahil siya effect jud dayon sa value since dali ang formula since magita sa formula is mag-divide lang jud. So, kung ma-change ang rate ana, so dako pud ang changes sa kung ma-change lang ang value sa interest rates ana, then ang value ana is ma-change po rin siya. Dako po niya pag-change. Like for example here, for a 100 payment at 5% interest, the value is $2,000. So $100 divided by 0.05, which is the 5%. But if given, for instance, 6%, then it drops to 1,666.67. So, diba, na changes dayon na makita. At 100 divided by 0.06, 16.67% decrease for a 1% rate increase. So, makita dayon jud ang difference. So, another disadvantages sa perpetuity is highly sensitive sa changes sa interest rate since dako ka siyang effect sa value bisan gamay lang na changes. Next is that if inflation is ignored or the nominal perpetuity is ignored, the real value decrease over time. So fixed payment loss purchasing power as prices rise, affecting nominal perpetuities. So, if ang inflation is gina-ignore or yung ang nominal perpetuity, of course, the real value will decrease over time. So that is another disadvantage of the perpetuity. Like, for example, here, a $100 payment might buy 10 items today, but with 2% annual inflation, in 10 years, it might only buy 8 items due to higher prices. So that is what it means for the third disadvantage of perpetuity. If we ignore the inflation, then the real value will decrease siya over time as year passes by. Okay, last but not the least, the last disadvantage of perpetuity is that not all institutions can sustain perpetual payouts. So there are only large or The only institutions that can sustain perpetual payouts are those only large, and stable organizations like endowments or mga governments na wherein sila lang jud kaya jud kaayo nga maka-afford to pay forever since naman sila source jud sa kwarta and smaller entities cannot. So mga one of the disadvantage of perpetuity is that small organizations or mga small companies um, cannot afford or dili ka sustain sa kaning perpetuity since dili mostly syempre gagmay lang man ang mga company so dili gyud sila ka hatag og mga or di sila ka sustain og sige bayad like forever na ingana the same amount of money forever. So dili nila ma-sustain ang perpetual payouts. So that's one of the disadvantage of perpetuity. Just like example here, a university endowment might sustain payments, but a local charity may not. So that's the last disadvantage of the perpetuity. That's all for our report. Thank you for listening, and we hope that you learned something in our discussion. Have a great day, everyone.